Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to InsurTech Amplified. We are joined today by John Standish, a co-founder and the Chief Innovation and Compliance Officer at Charlee AI. John, thank you so much for coming onto the show. How are you doing today?
Doing wonderful, and thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to sit here and have a discussion with you and all of your readers. Looking forward to it.
It's my complete pleasure. Let's start by giving our audience a little bit of your background for some context, please.
So I am in my second career of technology. I've been at this now for, almost 14 years. And how I ended up being here at Charlee AI as a co-founder and the Chief Innovation and Compliance Officer, it goes way back to starting in 1980. My first career was law enforcement in California. I did 32 years. Started with the Highway Patrol in California. And after a few years on patrol, I was put into investigations and assigned to a team to reconstruct catastrophic accidents using math and physics. And I did that in some pretty interesting cases. And then one day they came to me and said, "We want you to work into the auto theft unit and work on staged automobile collisions." And the reason why they did that is we proved how a collision occurred broken down in 3/4 of a second. There's an inverse to that. You can prove how a collision could not occur, hence staged automobile collisions. And I did that for 9 years. And that was my introduction to insurance. Before that, the only thing I knew about insurance was writing the monthly premium check, and that's it. So it was a lot of quickly on the job experience. So fast forward, I transferred from the Highway Patrol to the Department of Insurance, California, as a detective, and I retired as a chief. And in my chair there, a lot of experience in legislation and regulatory rulemaking processes, hence AI insurance compliance. And then when I retired, I was always interested in technology. I was the guy who had to try the latest gadget. I just love technology. And that sparked an interest, and it's like, when I was recruited to come to Charlee AI to help build a company, what I brought was the deep domain experience. So I've seen both sides of it. I've seen the side on the criminal nature of people trying to steal money from insurance companies, but I also saw the regulatory side of keeping insurance companies honest and on the straight and narrow. So you learn about the system, the loopholes where things collapse. And that is what I bring to the Charlee AI team, the deep domain knowledge, working with the engineers, refining our AI and doing some great things.
John, you got me hooked on something, and I have to ask you about this. So one of the things you said was there's all this math and physics around catastrophic cases, and in particular, in this case, the staged automobile collisions or automobile collisions. So if you can do some math and understand the physics around this could only have happened if it's a collision, but then you do the reverse math and say, there's no way this could have been a collision. Are you suggesting that people were actually staging stuff and saying they were collisions when in fact there was no way that was possible? They could be. This is one of the things you're talking about with people. This is fraud, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's an issue. It's a real problem. And it goes, it's a sliding scale. There's the really dumb people who'll try and do something and they get caught right away. We used to call this the low hanging fruit. They're easy to capture and spot, to the very sophisticated transnational organized crime groups that know the insurance system better than the entry level claims examiner, know what to say, know what companies to go to, know what companies to stay away from because they ask too many questions or they investigate. And they just don't, make the physics work when they stage collisions and claim injuries that are completely false or exaggerated.
So you mentioned always being interested in the new shiny object. I've always been this way. I literally still have, I think I can actually show it to you so you can believe me. Do you know what that is?
Oh, of course. I had one. Yes. The iPod.
Yeah, that is the original 5 gigabyte iPod with a FireWire and like all this kind of stuff. So you can tell I still have it and I have access to it when I'm on a call with you. That's what a geek I am. But the new shiny object.
I left mine on an airplane and I absolutely still despise myself. I wish I had.
Oh, no. I feel really badly if you know. Sorry. But we're both always interested in the new shiny object, and the new shiny object today is artificial intelligence. But and nobody can really stop talking about it, and it's being used in a bunch of different ways, and we can get into that too. But one of the biggest concerns about it is, you know, how do these models have bias built into them, and how do they amplify bias, and how do you see this stuff if you're interested in what this shiny new object is doing? How do AI driven decision making processes in financial services, which are going to be a big help to all of us, but
Right.
how do they potentially introduce bias and potentially amplify it?
Great question. So let's put some context first.
Please.
AI is not new. It's been around. I mean, going back
Forever.
for right. I mean, it's for the 40s.
Yeah.
I mean, but what made it really popular, and it starts with this, the iPhone when that came out, and all of a sudden the term big data came out, and there are massive amounts of information. Now, what do you do with it? So here comes AI. You have better computers. The algorithms are much more sophisticated, and now you're using big data, stuff that didn't exist years ago, and it's just a flood. They've opened the floodgates, as they say, into the marketplace, and it's amazing what you can do. Now, AI, is like a kindergartner. You don't buy AI off a shelf and it's fully trained, and knows right and wrong, and does a great job. You have to train AI. I think AI is like a kindergartner. It absorbs everything, and now you have to teach it what's right and what's wrong. So where people get into trouble with bias in AI, and this is particularly in the insurance industry, is the data they're using to feed the AI models to make processes work more efficiently biased to begin with? Is the model biased in some way? The person that designed the model, are their biases, crept into there, and maybe they don't know it. So you need to constantly look at this and adjust it and tune it. And, the world is full of bias. We're human beings. All of us have bias, and you have to recognize it. So, like, let me give you for an example. We have a customer in the property casualty space. They're down in Florida. Florida went through this, horrific period of the AOB, the assignment of benefits. You had bad contractors, nefarious lawyers taking over claims, and people were not being made whole for their catastrophic loss in hurricanes, and people got upset about that. So if you look at Florida and look at all the property claims, and you see some nefarious actors, that were doing, criminal acts, and they were caught and punished. If AI looks at Florida and says, okay, so XYZ contractors and ABC law firm working together, this is fraud. That's absolutely false. You cannot throw a blanket over everything. You have to look at every single claim. And we would have to, I remember educating insurance company SIUs, about this, decades ago. Just because somebody was arrested and tried and convicted for insurance fraud because they were part of an organized ring, and they would refer all claims in. Okay, cool. But we still have to do due diligence to prove that your claim actually met the threshold of fraud, because you just can't blanket. So that's one generic description. The other would be, the ubiquitous redlining of zip codes.
Right.
So if you don't teach the AI not to do that, bad things are going to happen really quickly.
So here's the thing though. You're going to use, and it's not just in financial services, and frankly, it's not just in insurance either, but big institutions are going to use artificial intelligence to help them scale and do things faster and more efficiently, make their processes better, make their employees more efficient. But while they're doing that, then that AI itself is going to have a bias built into it. And there's this it's like a vicious circle, right? Because the more it does this stuff, the more the bias kind of gets put into there. But what can you do to ensure that there is a certain amount of fairness and transparency, and even a little bit of explainability in these AI driven decisions, because those decisions are not going to go away. As a matter of fact, they're going to multiply, right? So how do you make sure, at least in these early stages, that we have fairness?
Sure. So let me tell you a story.
Please.
About 2 years ago, I was at a NAIC, National Association of Insurance Commissioners meeting, which I used to be very involved with when I was with DOI working on committees and projects or whatever. And I decided to go back to NAIC and just listen because they were talking about drafting a model bulletin to regulate AI. And I met some wonderful people, the American InsurTech Council, and we joined them, that group. And we were at dinner one night, and we were talking about how do you regulate, or how do you test the AI to eliminate bias? And I wrote down on a cocktail napkin in front of everyone, I said, these are the 6 things that I would want to look for. 1, is the data factual? If you're using false data to feed an AI, bad things are going to happen. So fact that, you're right, the insights and predictions must be accurate and related to the information in the policy and the information in the claim file. So, when an insurance company goes into court, for whatever the reason, and the claims examiner comes in and testifies, and they have a claim file, right? And they are testifying to the facts that's outlined in the claim file. So the data must be factual. It must be accurate. That's a second pillar. The algorithms have to be tested, vetted, and continuously checked for accuracy. It's not a one-stop thing. Like, you create a model, you got an algorithm, and you've got to constantly come back in there and check it. How is it performing? Is it accurate? Is it drift? Is if it's not working, what went wrong? You got to correct that. And you got to do it, pretty routinely. I mean, we do it, every 90 days for a customer, just to make sure that it's still proper, because these are real decisions that have, financial impact. The other thing is like the explainability of AI. Your AI must be explainable, especially in a heavily regulated industry. So let me give an example here. A consumer calls the Department of Insurance and complains that their claim isn't being paid, for whatever the reason. So the DOI, the Consumer Affairs, they call the carrier and go, what's going on? Why, we received a complaint. Tell me about this claim. Why is it not moving forward? And so if the carrier says, well, we used AI and we have this model or whatever, it's like, okay, fine. Explain it. How did the model arrive at that decision? Right. So it's got to be explainable. It's got to be, the fourth thing is it's got to be articulate. It must.
What does that mean?
So when the AI, when we deploy our AI into a claims workflow, and we provide insights or patterns that's within their claim file data, and the AI says, warning, this claim is flagged to end up in litigation. Okay, cool. That's important to know. Okay, so how did the AI arrive at this prediction? You have to be able to, you have to be able to show how the AI used your data, like in a claim file, to come to this prediction, and you highlight it. That's how it's articulated, right? So it's, how and where the insight pattern, things like that. It's transparent. It's interesting. You can fill a room full of people, all experts, and there's a black box versus the glass box. The black box is people are not going to divulge how their models or work. It's proprietary or whatever, but it's AI in the claim space needs to be a glass box. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be, all these things right there. And then the other thing, the final thing is that the AI must be testable. If somebody comes up with, a model and an algorithm that produces results, okay, that's cool. But how do you test it? How do you know that it's accurate? It's got to be testable. And this is an iterative process. It just doesn't stop. You're constantly doing these things. So that's go ahead.
So, those are 6 really great points. And to be fair, I wrote them all down so I can remember them for the future when I think about how AI should be employed. I like this a lot, actually. Is it factual? Is it accurate? Or it has to be accurate. It has to be explainable. This articulate thing, I love when we give kind of human speaking or writing attributes to this generative AI and the AI itself. for a bunch of different reasons, just because articulation is very nuanced. But anyway, I think that is important. And the transparency, I think, is really important. And obviously, all software at some level should be testable. And it's hard to do the testing with the AI, particularly generative AI, because it's hard to get it to repeat the same thing unless you're working on a really, what's the right word, specific data set. Right? Like I could ask ChatGPT the same question 5 times. It can give me 5 different answers. They may be related. They may rhyme with each other, but they're definitely not going to be the same. And that's not normal for most software that we've used up until now. Sorry, I feel like you want to say something.
Well, I mean, it's like you're feeding me cue cards here. So the ChatGPT, the generative AI, when that got introduced, it was like people were like, "Wow! I mean, this is amazing." But the key in a heavily regulated industry like insurance is that your large language model and small language model has to be built domain specific. In other words, did you build an ontology for insurance speak that includes workflows, legal requirements, regulatory requirements, the insurance lexicon, the lingo that is they use and the abbreviations and the claim files? Is your large language model trained on that? And this can't be done overnight. We started building our large language and small language model in 2016, and it took 5 years after we trained it on over 55 million claims.
Wait a second. So you just said 2016. ChatGPT itself didn't get released, into the wild until I want to say 2022, but I can't tell anymore because COVID has.
There was a lot of people interested in this space, experimenting, building.
Before this, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But this is the point that I wanted to make, right? Like you said, I would make the case that useful artificial intelligence goes back 50 or 60 years. Useful stuff, right? Because you had to have the throughput and the compute to be able to actually do anything with it. The ideas were there, again, for 100 years, for sure. But the fact that you were working on your own very specific, right, large language models in 2016 means that you've been thinking about this for a long time. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, one of the things that, so when I retired from public service and, people would ask me, oh, now what are you going to do? Are you going to go work for an insurance company? Are you going to teach? What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, but I do know this. I want to be part of something that creates a widget that makes life better for everybody. And so when you talk about in the world of insurance, you deal with the consumer, the customer. You have the insurance carrier itself, and now you have the regulatory government agency overseeing it to make sure everything works and stays within the guardrails. And the insurance carriers are profitable, the consumers are happy, and government is doing its job with as much ease as possible, overseeing this whole thing. So, what I experienced and my interest in software and building something, this is what drove me to come to this, to come up with an AI that will accomplish those 3 things.
But if you've mentioned this a couple of times, right? A highly regulated industry, regulators are involved. What role should they or can they play in ensuring this fairness and nothing's ever going to be unbiased, right? Because we just have biases, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that the current regulatory environment is going to change radically? Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of looking at like CART regulations and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in December of 2021, when I went to my first NAIC committee meeting on innovation, AI, big data, and I was listening to the regulators, they're learning. Regulators are learning about this, and they still have not caught up because the technology is moving, almost at a speed of light. I mean, what's here one month, and I guarantee you next month, someone's going to invent something that was, whoa, I never saw that coming. So how do you catch up? And the regulators are balancing, an approach to this because you don't want to stifle innovation and creativity. You don't want to, close the door on a special market like, AI for insurance. Because insurance companies need it. I saw an interesting stat. Department of Labor is making a forecast that within the next 10 years, over 400,000 people are going to leave the insurance industry. I think the industry right now is in a huge skills gap. So what's going on? All of your senior, most experienced people, they've been at this for a while. The boomers, they're retiring, waving goodbye, walking out the door, and they're taking all that institutional knowledge and expertise with them. And now you are bringing in a new workforce, a younger workforce, that there's a pattern that nobody is making a career out of insurance. Way back, people would say, my career is insurance. This is what I'm going to do. You don't have that anymore. They're here today, gone
Really?
tomorrow. And, so what happens? Now, all of a sudden, in the claims workflow, they are missing deadlines. They're not understanding the nuances of how they can lose control of a claim. The severity of claims is going up. We are litigation happy, and the younger claims examiners are getting overwhelmed. Claims managers are being overworked because there's not enough claims people. Claims managers are actually adjusting claims and not supervising. So you bring in AI as a great force multiplier, to that the AI can teach, the claims examiners in the workflow by pointing out insights and patterns. Like, here's a great example. We call it a MIST, M-I-S-T, minor impact soft tissue injury, rear end collision in the automobile space, which is over 60% of the types of collisions that insurance companies receive in the automobile line. And, there are certain patterns and indicators going on in there that a new person, it just can't see it. I mean, they don't understand. Well, the AI can point out these insights, like, collision is 8 miles an hour, but now all of a sudden they've got extensive treatment with a chiropractor, and they're jacking up the medical bills. And maybe you have, some nefarious healthcare professionals or attorney involved in this now, and away you go. Now, all of a sudden, you've taken a claim that can be settled relatively quickly. And that's all, in relationship to time. But AI gives the ability to the claims examiner to maintain control.
Yeah.
So once the claims examiner loses control of the claim, it's over.
If 400,000 people are going to leave the industry, and I hear similar numbers bounced around or bandied around by people often, right? And if the younger people that join, whether they're going to make a career out of insurance or not, but whether they're going to, if they join the industry, they're still going to have to know what to do and how to do it properly.
Right.
And if some of that, it's not just an experience gap that they have or a knowledge gap. I mean, it's that they're losing all of the benefits of the senior people that have experience that aren't around anymore to teach them anything.
Yeah, the skills.
Is there a way? And a skills gap as well. But I was actually doing another recording this morning for my sister's show, which is the InsurTech podcast, with a guy named Anish Chowdhury. Okay, and he's the chief data and analytics officer at Sun Life Asia. And one of the things that he said that they're working on is a very specific large language model internally that is almost like a training module. It's like I called it on the call with him like a digital mentor. Are you seeing stuff like that happening in the US as well, where you take all this experience, digitize it, and then give people access to it as well?
Yeah, I mean, so our AI, we explain to the insurance industry that it is the best 24-hour, 7-day a week, and never sleeps claims assistant.
Yeah.
It assists the examiners, the managers, the supervisors, and the C-suite in seeing things that, it is the classic, what don't I see coming at me around the corner? Because everyone's so focused. I mean, and they can't see this. It's the claims assistant, and it's wonderful. And, I don't want to date myself, but I can remember when I first got started in doing this insurance stuff, I learned that, if you were hired by an insurance company, they had these 6-week, 8-week training programs that all the people went through before you were assigned a desk. And even then you were closely mentored and, to get you up and running. That doesn't occur anymore. I've not heard this.
Really?
You get hired and in there and it's OJT. I've not heard of anybody that has an 8-week, introduction academy. I would love to know who's doing that. Cause I want to say this is the model. This is what everyone needs to do. But the people that I talk to or whatever, it doesn't occur.
One of the things we talk about a lot when it comes to big technological changes, whether it's digital transformation, which is a term I don't love, but something that just as a reference point, AI is going to cause a lot of new things to happen, new ideas to be implemented. But there's this, you said there's a skills gap. There's probably also an AI literacy gap as well. Do you think that there's like a mindset change that has to occur inside of whether it's an insurance company or any kind of company, really, to be fair, that's implementing this new tech so that people aren't afraid? Do you know what I
Oh,
mean? Because even if it's a great claims assistant, there is a fear because the media kind of stokes this fear that like everyone's going to lose their job because AI is going to be able to do everything instead. I don't believe that at all. And I can tell you, I've seen multiple tech cycles. And
yeah.
every time some new shiny object comes, you're going to be like, okay, every musician's going to lose their job because there's a synthesizer. So we won't have any musicians anymore. None of this is ever true.
Yeah.
Um, but how do you build this culture internally to let people know like it's going to be okay and you're just going to amplify your skill as opposed to take away your job?
So it's a constant education process, and I do this every day. Here's a great analogy.
Tell me.
Do you remember the TV show CSI when it first debuted?
So you have to understand, I have not lived in the United States for
Okay, well,
35 years.
so there's this wonderful
I
show.
never saw Seinfeld on TV.
Oh my God! Oh, well, it's all on
Yeah,
you.
so CSI I've heard of, but like I've never seen an
Okay,
episode. I have no idea.
there's a show about the crime lab at Las Vegas Metro PD, and
Right.
they solved all these crimes with all this fancy technology or whatever. And I remember, I mean, the prosecutors, we saw this in criminal courts. They would bring in the jury, and well, what's the mindset of the jury? Hey, where's the lasers? Where's the holograms? I mean,
Right. Where's Majority Report?
right. So it's like, okay, so what do people know about AI? It's what Hollywood's putting out.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, it makes a great story. There's a lot of fiction, so that, now let's shift gears. And like when you're in an insurance company and everyone's afraid AI is going to take their job in the business of insurance, AI is not going to take your job away. It's going to help you do your job better. It's
Way better.
you out of doing your mundane tasks so you can do other things that's going to be more productive, more profitable to the company, and settle claims faster. It's like Teresa Blissing.
Yeah. Each and lie.
Yeah, they did a wonderful paper they just released about AI bias, and I was very honored to be asked to just
You
comment.
participated in this as well. You were part of this, right? So talk to me about that. So this is important.
Yeah, well, first of all, I was honored when I got the phone call that they wanted to talk to me about this, and I know they did a lot of work and a lot of research into this, and it's like AI is going to save the insurance industry, but the insurance industry has got to knock down this wall that wait a minute, my job is going to be taken away. You cannot, like bring your computer into court and put it there on the witness stand and ask it questions.
Right.
That's not going to happen, right? So everyone take a deep breath and relax. Your job is not going to be taken. What you're probably going to do, I like the saying, AI is not going to take your job. The person using AI is going to take your job. That's
agreed. And this is always true in every. This I just want to get back to the cyclical thing. It's always true. Sorry, go ahead.
And so with the regulations that are built in there, holding insurance carriers accountable and holding consumers accountable too, of what they must do, while we're working through the claim, AI is going to speed it up, to help that outcome. So it's not, no one is going to lose your job. Now there are a couple of instances where AI can take over the automation part of it. And I told John, two great examples are like windshield claims, car windshield claims, or lost luggage claims. So like on the automobile side, if you have on your policy the little additional thing that windshields are going to be covered on your comprehensive thing, you get a crack in your windshield or something busts your windshield, a rock hits it while you're driving down the freeway or whatever, you call your insurance company and they go, okay, go to SafeLight. SafeLight will come to your house. They get the basic facts. Yep, the windshield's broken. Is it covered? Yep, it's paid. It's replaced and paid. You don't need a human in that loop. The same,
Easy. Yeah.
right? Easy peasy. So the other thing is like travel. So an airline loses your luggage. Did you travel that day? You submitted your ticket. Yeah, you were on the plane. And you have the baggage receipt. The airline had it, and it's gone. It's gone. It's never to be seen again. Pay it.
Right.
So, I mean, stuff like that. But where you get into more complex things about injury, or they're arguing over the coverage, does the coverage apply? They're arguing over who's negligent or who's most at fault. I don't know, compared to negligence state, something like that. That's a little bit more complex. And I think we are a ways away from that. I'm not saying it can't happen, but we're not there to do that yet.
So I'm going to give you an analogy, and then I'm going to ask you a final question, then I'll let you go.
Okay.
When I was working on a portfolio trading desk in Tokyo, let's just use Goldman Sachs as the perfect example, right? Portfolio trading means you're trading hundreds, sometimes thousands of stocks at the same time, sometimes in multiple markets, sometimes in different time zones. And a lot of the simple trades, so for stock that's liquid, has a normal trading pattern and stuff like that, you can just give it to an algorithm. It's going to do an unbelievably great job of trading it.
Mm-hmm.
But for complex trades that take place over days or weeks, or even for an illiquid stock, you had to have a human trade it, because no matter how great your algos were, there was no way, and your algo is artificial intelligence enhanced, right? There's no way it's going to be able to do it, because it can't see and feel the same things that a human can. It also can't make phone calls to call somebody and go, look, I have some liquid stocks that I want to either buy or sell. Where would you want to take these positions? So once you get into complex financial products, a human's always going to have to be involved, because at the end of the day, even just getting back to your 6 tenets here, right? It has to be transparent, but it also has to be explainable. And the impact that back then that an algorithm could have on a liquid stock is the same thing that, from an underwriting perspective, for a very sophisticated type of insurance product, you're just going to have a human involved, because they're going to have to know like all these other things that the AI is never going to have experience. So this is not new to financial services products.
Right.
It may be new to insurance, but I don't think it's going to be any different. Anyway,
I agree. It's just one final, to further take your point, which was great. I'm seeing a pattern right now that, okay, so insurance companies want to bring in AI into the claims workflow. And I can remember, and once again, I'm dating myself, when somebody called in a claim and actually spoke to a representative, this is before these call centers were sent offshore, people would ask the basics: who, what, when, why, where, and how, and then ask probing or clarifying questions to understand what happened, so they can understand the loss and start the claim. That doesn't occur anymore, because these call-in systems, it's people have 10 questions on a caddy template, and all they do is ask the questions and write down what the response is. And sometimes the response is 2 or 3 words. Well, if you're using AI with natural language processing and trying to analyze and gain sentiment from unstructured text, letters, words, phrases, and you're dealing with something like that, it's not going to be that successful. So the point is bringing the human back into the loop. Now, I totally get it. I understand, economy of scale. They want to do this and reduce costs or whatever. But I think it's coming back to roost that this is, if you really want to use AI to help you do this, we got to take a hard look at some of our basic workflows and get it together.
This is the one more thing, and then I'll let you go. Even just from a claims perspective, right? If you have to look out 3 to 6 years, what do you think is going to be different, and how is artificial intelligence going to impact that? Like I said, 6 years out or 3 years out.
I think in 6 years from now, the claims examiner and the supervisor and manager is going to come into work, wherever they're working, and they're going to turn on their computer, and the AI is going to show them, these are the claims you need to focus on right now, today. These are the claims that, you need to pay attention to because you're starting to lose control of it. And then here are some insights and patterns to help you make your decision today.
Again, I just think back to when I was trading and I saw this implementation of technology, and, we worked with this stuff for years and you could see where it was going. and it wasn't really that hard to predict. I don't think what you're saying is false at all. I think that's what we're going to see in the next like 3 to 6 years. John Standish, co-founder, chief innovation and compliance officer at Charlee AI. That was the fastest 35 minutes of my whole life. I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh,
it was awesome. And thanks.
Yeah,
and thank you also for thank you. And thank you also for bringing up the white paper that Teresa and Ichan did. This is also really great. I've read through it. I've seen it. It's really good stuff.
It is. They did a fantastic job.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Appreciate it. Bye.